Can you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are we born with a built-in readiness to use language? How do we learn how to use words and structure sentences in coherent ways? What role do parents play in teaching children how to communicate? What makes baby talk?
It's this.
As soon as a baby is born, an amazing process begins. A process which we all take for granted. The development of communication and language. With amazing speed, children go from making their first sounds at birth to speaking their first words sometime around their first birthday. And by the time they start school, children are speaking almost like adults, with a vocabulary of over 14,000 words.
I understand because he used words.
But how did they do it? What is the process by which language is acquired? How much do we owe to nature, our genetic inheritance? And how much do we owe to nurture, the environment in which we learn?
How are you? How are you, Sarah?
Until recently, it was assumed that the process was all nurture, that children learned language by imitating others, mainly their parents. That language was a learned skill.
Thank you.
But in 1957, MIT linguist Noam Chomsky revolutionized the study of language by questioning this assumption.
We look at the very difficult empirical problem of explaining how it is that a young child with very limited information available to him acquires a system of language and knowledge of language that enables him to produce and understand this vast number of new sentences.
Yeah. Big girl fly.
Jean Berko Gleason, a psychologist at Boston University, is an expert in language development.
Chomsky and his followers believe that human beings come into the world with what they call a language acquisition device, which is an actual neurological structure in the brain. They haven't specified where it is, but they tell us that the language acquisition device makes it possible for children to learn any language anywhere, and that only human beings have the language acquisition device, and that the language acquisition device makes it possible for infants and for young children acquiring language to know what the deep structure or the meaning is of language, because the principles are innate.
Ideas about the biological capacity for language sparked the creation of an entirely new field called developmental psycholinguistics. But many psychologists believe that social interaction between child and parent also has a major role to play in the development of language. Social relationships may be necessary to activate Chomsky's language acquisition. Research has shown that very young babies prefer human voices to other sounds and human faces to other images. Even at only a few weeks of age, they get upset when their parent's voice is paired with the face of a stranger.
You want to look inside? Okay, you open it up for me.
The role of social interaction in language development has been a major focus of Berko Gleason's work.
Who's that? That's the mommy.
Mommy.
We know that human babies are born with special mechanisms in their brain, or special parts of their brain, that are dedicated to the development of language, that it has special capacities that only humans seem to have. But having a special neurological capacity does not guarantee the acquisition of language. In order for language to develop, babies have to interact with other human beings. They have to hear language spoken to them. They can't just learn language hearing it spoken around them or hear language spoken on television and acquire it. They have to interact with other people. Social interaction really is at the basis of language development in children.
Come on. Patty cake. Patty cake.
Babies typically learn language from what's going on around them. They don't learn language abstractly. That is, a baby will hear language embedded in context and understand what the intention of the speakers are, partly because the baby already knows what's happening. In other words, if the mother holds up a bottle and says, "Here's your milk," the baby understands to begin with that the mother is talking about the milk because she's holding the milk up and showing it to the baby. The baby then begins to be able to decode the intention of the speakers because the intentions are embedded in the context of what's going on in the baby's life.
Oh, roll it. That's right. Patty cake.
If you watch mothers and little babies together, you see that mothers do some very typical things that help the baby to acquire language. In English-speaking households, for instance, babies are spoken to by parents or by mothers much more slowly than they would speak to other people. Parents enunciate very clearly when they talk to little babies. Sentences are short and simple. They're full of repetition. People say, "See the book, that's the book, it's a nice book." They make it much easier for the baby to decode what the language is than if the baby simply had to listen to adults talking about politics at the dinner table.
Puppy! And the baby! And the baby!
This was a perfect example of a mother talking to a young child. For instance, she's talking in a much higher voice than she talks to other people. She's talking slowly. She's talking about the things that the baby is looking at right at this moment. She's doing a really interesting thing, which is she's imputing meaning to the baby. For instance, the baby points up in the air and says baby, and the mother is looking around saying, "Where's the baby?" As if the baby's really talking about a baby. As the mother's really trying to make clear to the baby that language has a meaning. If you say something, people are going to try to interpret it.
The mummy! Oh!
So both nature and nurture are at work in the development of language competence. But there's also another critical process at work here. Research has shown that every child in every culture goes through some of the same sequences, the same